Hey, what's going on, guys? I didn't really know what to title this video because I have so much to show you today, but I can guarantee it's probably going to be pretty cool. What we're going to be focusing on is really just how to make sounds and how to resample and use it in context and just create some cool stuff. So earlier today, I guess right before I was going to record this video, I made this loop with 5 different instruments. That's bells, strings, all that. Let's go have a listen to that. If you don't know my music by now, you know that I like to write in F minor, harmonic minor. I love that stuff. Castlevania is a huge influence to me, and that's pretty much, look, it says Alucard up there. I wish I was him. Anyways, this is what we're going to turn this into. If that's not interesting to you, then I don't really know what to tell you. But what I can tell you is that this video is going to be relatively complex, but if you stick with me, then I'm going to show you exactly how to do this and how to make your own stuff to where you can get out of that, oh, I made a loop and it sounds cool, into creating something different with it. And it doesn't have to be orchestral instruments. It can be anything that is all relatively in the same key, or if you know the root note, to make everything in key. So let's go ahead and get started. So on my MIDI, as I said before, I basically wrote this out. It didn't take me too long, but I just wanted to create a quick loop that was in F harmonic minor. Might help if I turn this on. Strings, piano. And if you notice right now, something that is kind of important is that I try to keep this all relatively dry. I know that there is some delay on some of these, and there's a little bit of release, but I don't want to saturate it with a ton of reverb to where it's going to carry over, because when you layer reverb with reverb initially, then it's kind of hard to mess with. But if you have like arpeggio or something, then you can use that to pull all of these like different voicing of the same melody and make it more interesting, if that makes sense. We have the flat version, which is the exact same thing, and then I basically threw those 5 into an instance of Falcon. I'm going to turn these off. We're going to go into the edit tab and look at this stupid mess. It's actually not stupid, but it just looks stupid because it's like, what am I looking at? So basically what I did was I've used one oscillator group, and I've done 5 different oscillators, all with the IRCAM. I know it's IRCAM, but whatever. I'm just going over it. Excuse me. And basically just started messing with each individual one. And this is cool because if I have everything turned on at once, then it's all playing together. But what I can go and do is separate each instrument and then be like, all right, well, let's listen to how this sounds. Hopefully this plays. And I've already done some work on this. As you can tell, I've changed the direction, I've changed the size and the density of the grains, and I've basically just kind of turned all these knobs until something sounded good. If you don't know how to use a granular synth, I'll make a different video for that. The size is basically the size of the grains, the density. This makes it choppy, this blends it, long story short. Voices over here basically kind of create a harmonic tone, and it's cool because you can spread them out. If I turn this out really wide, then it's going to play 4 different voices on different parts of the sample. Versus, I'm really glad that that did that in real time. That was a very nice touch. Good job, Falcon. That being said, you can also play with the speed. It's not like your traditional granular synth where if you play a higher note, the sample plays faster. This is kind of controlled via that. If you right-click anything on here, then you can add modulation and go into your program and add a new LFO or ADSR or whatever, multi-stage envelope, and oh my god, it's so deep. It's so deep. Anyways, to try to keep this efficient, I've basically done that with all of these. And this is cool because, like I said before, once I start turning on all these effects, I can basically turn a couple of these on, one of these on, play them all at the same time, and use the same rack of effects that we have to create new tones. Let's have a listen to all of these played at once with all of the individual tweaking. It sounds great. It's like my worst nightmare. That still sounds good. I can play it at a higher pitch. If you noticed on the coarse tone, I've turned everything down 12 semitones. I don't know, I like lower things. I don't like screechy. Yeah. Yo, and this is sick because like like I said, anything on here that you want to change, you can freaking just add an LFO to it and that will change over time, making this sample so much more complex. Having that control opens up so many doors, and that's why I call this sound design playground complex pad. And this doesn't have to be a pad. Right now it's still pretty dry, so we can use that and chop that up and then add reverb to it later and create percussion out of it. And basically you're going to get into a vicious cycle of sound design, which is why I have to take breaks sometimes. Anyways, yeah, moving on to the effects, we have a dual delay, which you can just use a regular delay or whatever. You have to go into your effects here, and then you have like 50 or 80, or I know that's a huge difference number gap, but you have a lot of effects, long story short. So yeah, I added a dual delay, and then I've just used presets for the most part, a stellar rhythm. Pretty sure that I've tweaked the rate on here. Maybe we can go in and listen to this individually. Individually. Can't talk today. And this is a chorus, which is actually a chorus. I don't know if it's something else. It just sounds like a really awesome, complex chorus to me. So let's have a listen to that one. Not a huge difference. Oh, that sounds so nice. Okay, so the diode clipper is doing a little bit of distortion, but there's a little bit of high passing on everything below 60 hertz because I don't want to, you know, do the... Yeah, so I'm taking out some of the lows and then just driving a little bit. It's more means of saturation as opposed to trying to pull tones out. And the spark verb is doing, I think, the most work. Sort of. I have it on the After the Rain preset, and this is a big one, the diffusion reverb / delay. I think Spark Verb comes in its own plugin, which might be worth investing in, but for me, I'm like, no, I can just use it through Falcon and whatever, but it's sick, man. It just creates so much more spatial content. Plus it looks pretty. Yeah, that's nice. Alright, so this digital filter blew my mind. Because if you notice how it's moving, you can see that it's a notch, but it has editable bandwidth. So basically you have a low pass and a high pass, and you can edit this to make this sharper or lower and do this. Now this is cool because you can actually do this with an EQ. However, I'm going to be talking about filtering with an EQ versus using a regular filter in a different video. But the fact that I can do this all within Falcon is why this is so valuable to me. These two are set up with an LFO that are just kind of giving it that low sweep, and this will kind of give it that evolving form. And it just sounds so ethereal. Yeah, that's really nice. So coming back in and then talking about means of exploration, what I can do now is, oh, no. Oh. There we go. What I can do is I can start turning these off and just listen to how each of these sound individually, because it shouldn't make that big of a difference. Well, the sound is going to make a big difference, but it should still be usable is what I'm saying. And I can just start messing with the position. I can mess with the speed and turn the speed down to make it play slower. I can change the direction. And I can make this bounce with jitter. And right now I'm just turning knobs. I have no goal or context. I'm just doing things. So yeah, that one is, I think, the piano. This one is one of the arpeggiated bells. Playing this at like extremely high notes. Sounds pretty cool as well. And again, I can just go in and start turning some of these off. Like if I turn this off, that's probably going to help me define what kind of sound I'm pulling out of this a little bit more. And I can change all of this stuff. That sounds awesome. Oh, dope. And like you can tell, like you just get really amazing results just from, setting this up. And then like it's not a set it and forget it type thing. Like you have to kind of have an idea, but once you kind of go through the trials of putting everything in place, then it becomes amazing. And here's the thing. You don't need Falcon to do any of this, as I think I mentioned before, I hope. However, this is designed to make that process more efficient. This is your playground. So don't think that you need Falcon to do this. In fact, I'm going to show you how to do this with an Ableton because I like you guys. But, this Ableton essentially is your playground. However, Falcon has a couple of nicks and knacks that you can set up to basically make the process easier for exploration. And my personal opinion is to set a resampling channel and just go. However long you want to record, it doesn't matter. Because as long as you're recording, even if it's on a loop, as long as you have the little plus thing turned on, it will just keep recording. And you won't have to fish through a bunch of things. And you know that it's in the key of F0. Sorry, it's in the key of F, harmonic minor, which is what I made it in. So you can immediately just take bits and pieces and expect it to be harmonically in line with the rest of the track that you're building. Or you can even take an entire track and build it off of these sounds. You see where I'm going with this? And it all kind of spawned off of this idea. I really should take my own advice because I don't explore this enough, but I think it's sick, man. And I think that it makes me excited. So anyways, I'm going to show you how to do this via the long way, the long version, because not everybody has Falcon and it's expensive as hell. Now I will say that it sounds different, but it's not too different or unusable for that matter. So let's have a listen to that. So here's the dry version, and then here's just a small chain of effects. So you can tell that it is a little bit similar, but there's also some key differences, especially with the sweeping motion. I'm using a filter from the Replica XT to take care of that, and I could just use a regular notch filter or whatever, but I think that it's important for you to realize that there's so many different ways to achieve the same kind of sound that you don't really have to go and buy a bunch of expensive plugins, and I'm showing you that by using a bunch of expensive plugins. Let's take a look at these. Basically, I have samplers set up on each channel, and keep in mind that it's all set to the same root note. As long as it's on F1, then I know that they're all going to play harmonically. Now, that's not to say that you can't go in and start messing with the different root notes and then start playing with chords and all that, but you're going to get a lot of mess, and it's up to you. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. So something that I want you to keep in mind as well, which is cool with an Ableton, is that they finally added a copy value to siblings. So if I want to filter on this and I want it on all of these and I want it to be the exact same thing, I can go on there, copy value to siblings, and now each one is going to have a filter on it. That's so nice. I can turn this off, do the same thing, should work. It does, which is awesome. I can set up one filter on all of these and have them all do the same thing, or of course I can go in and add an LFO within my Max for Live devices and then have each one controlled individually. That I would suggest setting up to an LFO, that way you don't go crazy with tweaking or whatever. But I mean, how cool is that? It's freaking awesome. You can even go in and do pitch bending and then go in and do FM stuff. I don't know what you're going to get, but I'm basically showing you options that I do not have enough time to go over. So yeah, you can play with this. You can also play with reversing the sample. It's nice that there's a little reverse button going within all that. I'm going to reverse these two, keep these the same. And I get just some, a different feel from the original. Okay, onto the effects. The first thing that I have is an EQ that's it's not totally surgically cutting it, but there are some lows that I'm cutting out just to try to keep everything consistent, since I'm going to be blasting this with effects. The next one is reverb, which I've actually taken out more lows that I'm just pumping out sound. Ableton's reverb is pretty fantastic, and you can do all the same functions as Pro R. I just like the way that it colors the sound. Next up I have some saturation. By the way, I did add some saturation on this one, which is pumped out a little bit more because of the volume shift, but this one also has some multiband dynamics. And honestly, all of these effects that I'm applying, like I can just go into Falcon and turn all those effects off, and then, you know what I mean? They mix and match. And then the last one is the big one, the diffusion delay. Diffusion delay. Eva, I need a diffusion.
Eva, I need you.
Sorry, that's my Metal Gear Solid Snake impersonation that I should probably not do as much. The diffusion basically creates like a wall of sound. We're using the same diffusion on the Spark Verb, which I briefly went over here, diffusion. And basically it kind of just like has this like really wide delay that creates a cloud of sound. I think that's the best way to look. It even looks like a cloud. Maybe that's a gas cloud. The mix is turned up pretty high. There is a little bit of dry signal in there, and I guess this is on dotted. It doesn't really matter. You can turn it to straight. And this is cool because it gives you a visual representation about the sound, how it's going to change over time. So this is a full measure. And right now we're playing at 1/16, so you can see the distribution. And it's neat because you can tell that right here versus up here, it's just offset by just a little. Sorry, I'm getting into way too many details. But yeah, this is dope. You can like shuffle it, you can feel, you can mess with panning and ducking and all that. Totally parameters, but the big point is that it does this to this. If you want to make a pad out of something, get yourself a diffusion delay. I think that there's a cheaper version that's regular Replica that I deleted because I invested in Replica XT. But so like we're using a bunch of plugins, right? So my advice to you is to go into these things, start changing parameters, try different presets, and bounce everything out to audio, because you never know what's going to jump out at you and what you're going to like. The purpose of this video was basically to just kind of give you a context of how to get into creating variations of sounds using material that you already have. I don't have a professional background in music theory. I love Castlevania music, and I was like, well, what does that sound like? And they're like, well, it's a lot of harmonic scales. And I was like, all right, well, people make a lot of bass music in F, so I'm going to try harmonic minor F. F harmonic minor. Harmonic minor. Whatever. Sorry, dumb jokes today. But yeah, so basically I looked that up, and then I can basically also cheat that out with my Ableton push and bounce out a couple of notes and keep out the voicing. But who's to say that you don't have a sample pack from Splice that you really like that has, exactly what you like, but you're like, I don't want to copy off of that loop, but I want to do something with it and make it mine. Well, this is how you do it. This is how you resample with musical content regarding, just creating colorful sound and texture. I love texture, and I love glitching, and I love basically breaking sounds, and this is how I do it musically. You don't have to be an expert to get to this part. This is the trivial part. This is the easy part, to be honest. But yeah, thank you guys so much for sitting through my rants and rambles. I'm not sick anymore, but I still kind of sound weird. That being said, I hope that you guys really enjoyed what I was teaching today, because this is something that I'm excited about and excited to share it with you. What I would like from you guys, if possible, other than the like and subscribe, sorry, oh my God, is what your questions are. I would like to figure out, where you guys are struggling in your music production places. Not that I might have the answer, but we may be able to figure it out together. Thank you guys so much for watching my content. I would like to see your opinions and thoughts in the comment section. And happy producing.